Ian Rankin created a scholarship 8 years ago within our Adam Smith Foundation Scholarship Programme. The Ian Rankin Writing Scholarship is specifically open to students studying journalism, creative writing, radio and television. This is one of many personal and financial commitments Ian makes to supporting young people and organisations in his home county of Fife. Each year, students are invited to submit a short story which is assessed by a member of college staff for the shortlist. Ian critiques the work of each student and is heavily involved in the process through which the successful winners of his scholarship are selected. Ian attends the college and personally presents the financial awards to the students and spends time with them over lunch learning more about their plans and ambitions for the future.
Thanks for the opportunity to ask you some questions, Ian. One of the questions I was interested in asking you was that, given that most people will say they read books as a form of escapism, they read fiction to escape, why do you think work like your own and a lot of different books and programmes where fiction is so realistic and set in towns and communities that people live in, why do you think they choose that form of escapism? Is it really an escapism at all?
I mean, it is escapism to the extent that you're leaving behind your own life and your own troubles and the real world, and you're entering a parallel universe where other stuff is going to happen that isn't necessarily happening or going to ever happen in the real world. I guess that makes it escapist. But people come to crime fiction mainly, I think, these days to try and learn something more about the world that they live in and some of the problems that we've got in society. So I guess crime fiction has it both ways. You can see it as a form of escapism. It's an exciting adventure, and most people are never going to experience these kinds of adventures in real life, but they can imagine them. They can enter that world for a wee while they're sitting reading. But also they're kind of confronting some big questions about the way the world is, the way society is. Especially in the Rebus novels, I tried to, deal with every book's got a different theme, a different subject, whether it's xenophobia or whether it's immigration policy, whether it's religious bigotry, basically problems that I experience or I've seen in Scotland, and saying, I guess the real question is, why do we continue to do bad things to each other?
You do set a lot of your work in Fife. Fife as a setting is, obviously you are a Fifer, and it is a good setting. There's lots of different towns, places, villages, lots of opportunities to set fiction in Fife. But do you think enough fiction is actually set in the kingdom?
Probably not. There's always room for more. There's no crime fiction series, for example, set in Fife that I can think of. Writers who've been born in Fife, like me and Val McDermott, have set either portions of books or whole books in Fife, but not a series. It'd be great, because I would like to read those books, because when I read crime fiction, it tells me a lot about the places where the books are set. So if I want to find out about any city or country that I'm going to visit, I'll usually try and find crime fiction set there, because you get a sense of the culture, the history, the social structure, and also often places to go and places to avoid. So, if you want a tip on where not to go in Edinburgh, read the Rebus novels.
The characters within your books, are any of them set based on true life people, like family or friends or individuals you've met throughout the years?
My lawyers would advise me to say no. Absolutely none of the characters in my books are based on real people. Some of them are. People actually pay money to charities to be in my books, and I give them the choice of, do they want it to be them, the real them, or do they want a kind of fictitious them who could be a gun runner or a slave trader or a cop or a murderer or whatever. And we discussed that. My dad used to think he was in all my books. He never was, but he thought he could hear his voice in some of the characters. And I've certainly had plenty of people come up to me down the years and say, oh, that's obviously this person. A lot of cops in Edinburgh used to say, well, Rebus is obviously modelled on, and it would give me a range of names.
Was any of them right?
No, I didn't know any cops when I started writing the Rebus books, so he couldn't be based on anybody. He was like a big brother that I never had, I think. A big brother I could have arguments with about the way the world is.
And you've been writing about crime for a long time. Do you think you could solve a true life crime?
No, because I know this from personal experience. I don't work well in a team. And a lot of real life police work, unlike fiction, is teamwork. It's about working well as a small cog in a big machine. Rebus can't work like that, which is why he really wouldn't fit into today's police force readily. And I know that I wouldn't be able to fit in. I'd always be going off at a tangent or wanting to be the maverick, wanting to do it my own way, not wanting to follow the rules, not wanting to do it the same way as everybody else. So I probably would be very bad at solving crime. And the other thing is, people often think crime writers would be great at committing crime. If you've lived your whole life with these fictional crimes, surely you'd be able to pull off the perfect crime. And I mean, I do have some knowledge of how you could go about that. But in real life, when in the few cases where crime writers have actually tried to kill somebody and get away with it, they haven't got away with it.
You've just answered my third question.
So when it comes to actually writing the books, how do you manage to motivate yourself to just sit down and get the whole thing done?
The mortgage is always a reasonable answer to that. Your public, your fans are expecting the next book, your publisher is waiting for the next book, you've signed a contract for the next book. Eventually panic sets in. When panic sets in, the adrenaline gets going, and then you just sit down and you start writing. Getting the ideas I find hard. Getting an original idea and working it through, deciding what theme I want to explore, what plot would allow me to explore that theme, that's hard. Doing the research can be hard. Writing the book, it's not that bad. It's one of the least tough bits of the whole process.
Is there anywhere in particular in regards to actually your storyline and things, is there any inspiration that you draw from? Or
A lot of the stories come from the news. I'm a news junkie, and I'll cut clippings out of newspapers of odd stories or crimes that have happened, and I'll say, what does that say about us? What does that say about humans? What does that say about Scotland? What does that say about Edinburgh? Or what if that happened in Scotland? Why did that happen? People sometimes tell me stories. I go to the pub and somebody will say, have you heard this thing that happened? This weird thing that happened? And I'll look up. And 99 times out of 100, I can't get a novel from it, but one time in 100 I maybe can. And, cops will tell me stories. Sometimes I make stuff up, shockingly. As a fiction writer, I'm allowed to actually make stuff up. But the kernel is usually something that's actually happened. What I do is I cut out all these newspaper cuttings and I scribble things on bits of paper, put them all in a big folder, and then when it comes time to start the next book, I just get the folder out and I sift through it and I see what's there. Is any of it more interesting to me than any other stuff? Does any of it have is a connection? So you could sometimes find that over a course of 6 months you've got scribbles or cuttings about that seem to have a connection, a thematic connection, and you think, well, that might be, obviously I'm interested in that. I didn't know I was interested in it, but obviously I'm interested in it. And so maybe that should be the plot of the next book, which is how, the one I'm writing just now, that's exactly what I did. I got the cuttings file out and went through it, and there were 2 or 3 things that just, I could see, that could make a connecting story. And that's all I need as a novelist. I need one good idea a year.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Thank you, and congratulations on winning this year's awards. Well done.
It was quite surreal. It was just, I don't know, he's such a down-to-earth guy, and you just don't expect it. You expect to be quite starstruck, but he just makes you feel so relaxed and stuff. So
it was really weird. Like he just acts totally normal, so it's just kind of really fun, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it'd be.
He was really approachable. You felt like you could talk to him for ages, and he was really sort of down to earth, so just a brilliant experience.
Go for it. I mean, you can't win it if you're not in it, so.
You don't really expect to win, but even just submitting something, it feels like good because you know that you've achieved at least that.
To get selected for the shortlist and get the interview, that was a good experience, so it's well worth doing, and who knows.